Hi, I S. Bhuvaneswari, Assistant Professor, Department of English, Dr. MGR Educational and Research Institute, University, Madurai, going to present you an introduction about literary theory and criticism. Let us see what they are. Before we go to the video, let me remember T.S. Eliot, T.S. Eliot's words that criticism is as inevitable as breathing, and that we should be none the worse for articulating what passes in our minds when we read book and feel an emotion about it. Uh, Etymologically, the word criticism is derived from the Greek word meaning judgment. Hence, criticism is exercise of judgment, and literary criticism is the exercise of judgment on works of literature. It is a play of mind on a work of literature. Then, literary criticism is the comparison, analysis, interpretation, or evaluation of works of literature. It is essentially an opinion supported by evidence relating to theme, style, setting, etc. For example, if you are reading any prose or poetry, if you interpret it on the basis of author's view, on the basis of our own view, on the basis of social view, like this it extending, no? So it is like that. It is called literary criticism. Researching, reading, and writing works of literary criticism will help us to make better sense of the work. Now, so that extends into literary movements. Short and crisply, let us see what they are. Literary criticism, the study of literature, evaluation of literature, interpretation of literature, a practical application of literary theory deals directly with particular literary work. Whereas literary theory, systematic study, the nature of literature, methods for analyzing literature, and etc. And it extends like that. Let us see what are the types of literary criticism. Moral criticism. If you chronologically, if you take moral criticism, psychoanalytic, Marxist criticism, reader response, structuralism, post-structuralism, like this it extends. Let us let us go to the literary theory. It is the body of ideas and methods we use in the practical reading of literature. It offers varying approaches for understanding the role of historical context in interpretation, as well as the relevance of the linguistics and unconscious elements of the text. It formulates the relationship between author and work. So it studies not only the individual author but also the situations, circumstances, and overall the culture in which it is written. And a very important thing you should see here is literary critics. The critics, without critics, we cannot come to know the real value of literary works. Okay, so what is the role of literary critics? What they are doing? Who is he? Critic is a person who judges and comments on the qualities and character of literary works. He may conduct a close reading of a literary work. Okay, the work of literary critics is similar to the work of author writing evaluative text. So, in the point of author's view, we can when author himself evaluate his book, no, like the same thing critic should be doing. Should do this evaluation. Who is an ideal critic? A good critic must have superior sensibility. He must also have wide erudition, and he must be entirely impersonal and objective. He must not be emotional, that is very important. And he must have a highly developed sense of fact. So then only you can get the gist of the text or the piece of literary works. Modern literary criticism, which is varied from the traditional one, and it elaborately we can see deep and wide, widely criticize the literature. Let us see what they are. How they literary criticism That means modern literary criticism is the study, evaluation, and interpretation of literature. And what is that evaluation? Well, previously also they evaluate. Now, in what way here they are evaluating? No, it is a philosophical discussion of literature's goals and methods, not the outer part itself, not only the author's point of view. So generally, what a philosophical discussion on literature's goals and methods. The basic idea of dialectical conflict, domination, and oppression remain important here in the modern criticism. It's very important. Much contemporary critical theory views social processes as overdetermined as opposed to Marx's simple base superstructure model. So you can see the chart of different types, theoretical and practical criticism. In theoretical criticism, you can see mimetic criticism and pragmatic, and practical or applied criticism, you can see expressionism and objective. Let us see elaborately what they mean. And theoretical criticism, a critical approach or doctrine that examines a literary work in the light of certain theories of literature or uses the text as a support for the development of literary theory. Whereas in a practical approach to literary criticism, it means the text is approached in universal terms. Okay. And then, critics place great emphasis on the fact that the meaning of a text is intrinsic. Difference between practical criticism and theoretical criticism. If you see here, you can clearly understand what they are. So practical criticism is it's experimental, but theoretical it is not an experimental. Which practical criticism also called applied criticism. It is opposite of applied criticism, which is opposite of applied criticism, theoretical criticism. And very important point here, display world to mind in practical criticism, but theoretical criticism display mind to world. And in practical criticism, which represents the world as to be made a certain way, whereas theoretical criticism represents the world as being a certain way. Now we are going to see about four major literary theories. What are they? Mimetic theory, pragmatic theory, expressive theory, and objective theory. The mimetic theory. I hope you heard about mimetic words. What are they? Mimetic means what? It means imitation. Mimetic means imitation. You can say Plato invokes the flawed mimetic capacity of poetry in Aristotle in the 4th century BC itself, where he states that the tragedy is the imitation of an action. In his Poetics, he mentioned this. So, mimetic is very important theory. It's a very important criticism which looks to identify intertextual relationship between two texts that go beyond simple echoes, allusions, citations, etc. Pragmatic theory. This criticism is concerned first leading with the ethical impact any literary text. The works as something which is constructed in order to achieve certain effects on the audience. Effects such as aesthetic pleasure, instruction, like that. Okay. Very important four aspects of this pragmatic theories are speech acts, rhetorical structure, conversational implicature, and the management of reference in discourse. Now, expressive criticism focuses on the artist's emotion. It describes poetry as an expression. We can see when we touch poetry, we cannot forget our Wordsworth, who defines poetry as emotion recollected in tranquility. Right? He says a poem is inner made outer. So, such a crispy way he say. So, it is expressive criticism. While expressive criticism is more likely to be used in poetry, it is also valuable when critiquing novels and essays. Now, next we are going to see objective theory. So, this is constructive response based on balanced thoughts and facts rather than emotion and personal preferences. The fourth coordinate highlights the integrity and ontologically sound status of the work itself without immediate response to audience, poet, or external reality. This theory is assumed to hinder from the personal hearsay. We can shortly say art for art's sake, as Abraham says. Okay. Now, see this chart, which gives a clear picture of literary theory and criticism. That is the world, the author, the text, and the other text. And you can see the while criticizing text objectively, reality, symbol, archetype, like that means beyond the world, real world, and then come to the text come to the reader's point of view. So, like this, it extends, which gives a clear picture of literary theory and criticism variables. Now, this timeline of literary theory gives a clear-cut picture of how it uh, changed throughout the history. Okay, chronologically, how it has changed, how criticism modified, how it differed from what tradition and modern criticism, traditional and modern criticism, we can see from the beginning, from classical theory, medieval theory, Renaissance, neoclassical, romantic theory, and Marxism. So, like this, it extends its variations and all you can see in this picture. Mm. Hope you can understand what is literary theory and criticism. In this video, I shortly give you an introduction. In the forthcoming videos, we can see elaborately about all these criticisms. Okay. Now you just explain the use of literary criticism in literary analysis. And next you can write, you just go through or interpret what are the four major literary theories, and you try to do it in elaborate way. You can prepare like a PPT also. Thank you.